I read a little article, you probably heard it too, referring to the life of Jesus Christ. The effect of one single life on this earth, one solitary life. Let me read it to you. It's referring to Christ. Compare that with yourself. He was born in a small, unknown village, in a very small country. He was born the son of a very poor village woman. He grew up in another small village where he worked only as a carpenter until he was 30 years old. And then for the next 3 years, he was a traveling preacher. You know, the world doesn't value carpenters or traveling preachers. He never wrote a book. He never held any public office. He never had a family. He never owned a house. He didn't go to college. He never visited any big city in the world. He never traveled more than 300 kilometers from his hometown at any time in his life. He never did any of the things that people usually associate with great people, the great things. He had no degrees after his name. He was only 33 when people turned against him. All his friends ran away and left him all alone. He was handed over to his enemies, and they put him through the mockery of a trial. He was executed by crucifixion by the government of his day as a criminal. And while he was dying, his executioners gambled for his clothes, which were the only property he had on this earth. And when he was dead, because of the pity of a friend, they loaned him a grave to be buried in. But since that time, 2,000 years have come and gone. But nobody in history has influenced history as that one single man. He's the central figure of the human race, Jesus Christ, the leader of all the progress that mankind has seen in any field. All the armies that ever marched on this earth, and all the navies that ever sailed the seas, and all the governments and parliaments that ever sat anywhere in the world, have all put together, have not influenced the life of man on this earth as that one single life. And he says to us, follow me. You don't have to be famous, brothers, sisters. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to own a house. You don't have to have a family. If you have these things, thank God for it. I'm not saying anything wrong with these things. I've written books. I've got a house. I've got a family. But what I say is, if I think these things mean anything, it's a question of how you live your life before God. One life can influence millions if you live before God. That's so important. So when you look at the values with which Jesus lived his life, we learn something. What is the secret of his life? There we can learn how I can build the superstructure of my own life. Almost from the beginning of my own Christian life, more than 50 years ago, I'm very thankful that the Holy Spirit directed me to make the life of Jesus on earth my study. In the Old Testament, they just studied the Bible. Today, I don't just study the Bible. I use the Bible to study the life of Jesus. It doesn't matter if I can't remember all the verses in the Bible. If I've studied the life of Jesus and understood how he lived and patterned my own life after that by the power of his Holy Spirit, then I've lived a wonderful life, even if I don't know the Bible. Because remember that for 1400 years, nobody had a Bible like this after Christ rose again. Printed Bibles were available only in the 1500s. How did people live for 1,400 years without a Bible at home? And even the early Christians, there was no New Testament in those days. The New Testament was completed towards the end of the first century. But they had something. They heard about the life of Jesus. And the Holy Spirit showed them the principles by which Jesus lived. And that's how Christians, true Christians, lived when they didn't have a Bible. Today we have so much Bible knowledge. We study the Bible. It's good. But it's a question of what do you go to the Bible for? Just to get a sermon sometimes. Make the life of Jesus your study. That's endless. And I'm still learning how to live as I study the life of Jesus. The principles by which he lived his life.